Hey traders, so in addition to the weekly swing report that the chart guys have as a service, which goes more specifically into individual companies and the levels that trigger certain trades as well as their stop levels and targets, this is a bit more broader based of an election preparation video. It's essentially going to be stepping stone number one as to how you are going to prepare and what to be looking for as we head into the election, which is less than 3 weeks away at this point. So essentially we want to lay out the game plan, if-then scenarios. If this result happens, then I will take these actions. And that's to prevent from us just scrambling at the last moment. Once we see the results, we want to have it all laid out, ideally on paper, and it's just a very simple step-by-step guide to follow that we then act on depending on which results we get. Let's break it down a little bit further. So the outline of this video, we're going to be looking at probabilities, polls, and odds, as that is the data that the market is using to begin to price in some of these scenarios and outcomes of the vote. The price action as we lead up to the vote itself is going to be important, determining whether we're looking for a sell the news event or whether we're looking for a volatile move in the opposite direction if perhaps the market prices in the wrong result. Best case scenarios with correlation, we want to be looking at sectors that are anticipated to move in the direction of the broader market based on different results. And of course, a breakdown of the sectors that we are watching most significantly that will be influenced differently depending on who is going to win. So looking at probabilities, polls, and odds, right now we have polls favoring Biden by a pretty significant margin. We have national polls that are showing that to be the case, and they have widened the lead a little bit since the debate and since Trump came down with COVID. We also have money being bet on Biden. We can see that in our betting odds on websites like Bovada. There's also an FTX exchange that has probabilities on TradingView. You can type in Trump or Biden and see what those odds are based on where bets and where money is being placed. But we have to keep in mind, both of those things were wrong in 2016. We had Clinton favored in polls and Clinton favored on betting probabilities, and it was wrong. So the market began pricing in a Clinton win and then had to significantly readjust, leading to volatility in response to a Trump win, and the market had to fix its incorrect pricing in. So that is very important as we head into this election, because there is less trust in the market on this data than there would be if we saw results that were predictable last time around. So let's just say the polls and the betting odds were right in 2016. In my opinion, right now the market would be more aggressively pricing in a Biden win based on that data. But again, that data is less reliable in 2020 than it was in 2016 because of what happened with the results in 2016. So let's talk about best case correlations. If I am trading a sector in response to the results, I want to choose a sector that's going in the direction, ideally, of the broader market. I want that wind at my back. I don't want to be playing a sector bullish because one of the candidates won, but the broader market is dropping. I know that that's only going to hurt the individual sector. Yes, the individual sector can stand on its own two legs and do its own thing, but we know that it's going to perform ideally in an ideal world with the broader market going in the same direction. So just as an example, let's say we have the private prison sector, which has been very weak over the last couple years, and it appears to be pricing in a Biden win recently. If we were to see Trump win, the broader market go up, we would be looking at the private prison sector to go up pretty significantly. We would have shorts covering, we would have the market readjusting for another 4 years of Trump, and we would have the broader market going up to help that sector go up as well. So that's just an example of wanting to look in the direction that the broader market is going as far as which sectors we're going to be focusing on. Pricing in as we approach. So two examples. The TAN example, which is the solar ETF, which has been all bull, and we got CXW, which is a private prison, which has essentially been all bear. Let's look at these charts just a moment and discuss pricing in a bit further. So first we're looking here at TAN, T-A-N, the solar sector ETF, and we can see over the past few weeks, it has been a raging bull with a ton of strength. The daily RSI is up in the mid 80s. So if you told me the election was tomorrow and the chart looks like this, even if we get a bullish, an anticipated result that is bullish for the solar sector, I would be cautious of a sell the news event. Price action leading up into the event of the election is very important to me. So if we were back here and you told me the election is tomorrow, it's a tightening range. I would say if we get a bullish election result for the sector, watch for this breakout. But again, this tells me the market is likely already pricing in a bullish outcome in the election, and I would not expect a ton of follow through for the bulls if that outcome were to come tomorrow. Now we have 3 more trading weeks to go, so the price action leading up to the election is going to change, but this is just an example. We have a video, if you Google pricing in chart guys, there's a video specific as to the event of pricing in and how it relates to known news events. And the election here is a known news event. It's just not a high probability event as far as what's going to be the result of it. CXW is a private prison. This is the weekly time frame. And the bears have complete control. You know, there's a ton of comfortable bears here. We are below the COVID lows. We are at the bottom of a multiple year downtrend. The bears have complete control. This tells me 2 things. I know that, we'll go into a bit more detail, but I know that Trump is bullish the sector and Biden is bearish. If we see a Biden win and the chart looks like this, I wouldn't expect a ton of follow through to the downside. If we had a Trump win and the chart looks like this, that tells me the bears got overconfident, and I would expect a lot of short-term short covering to respond to a Trump win. So price action leading to the vote is a definite factor as to expectations of price action after the vote results moving forward. One other note that we have to mention, there's a possibility that we don't get clear-cut results on election night, and that would just lead to market volatility on the subject of headlines, where we would say, you know, now we have this state's result, and this shifts the probabilities for this person to be the winner. And any contested election is obviously going to lead to uncertainty and volatility as well. As soon as the market knows, sure thing, this is who the winner is, we see confident, significant pricing in across the market and across individual sectors. So here's an infographic to help organize things a little bit as far as to likelihood and what to expect. You can see at the bottom of this chart here, we have a scenario where the Democrats sweep the House, Senate, and White House. That gives them political control, and that would lead to at least initial bearish reaction in the broader market, in our opinion. Now, historically speaking, you can go back and look at data that says, generally speaking, we don't really have a significant difference in the long-term stock market results based on whether a president is a Democrat or a Republican. But as far as short-term reactions go, in our opinion, we would see a bearish market reaction if that is what the results were going to be. Any other reaction where you have a mix, or I should say any other results where you have a mix of Democrats or Republicans controlling different aspects of the government, you're going to see political instability, political gridlock, essentially. You're not going to see the ability to just push a bunch of bills through to significantly change the political as well as the business operating environment that we are currently in. So in those scenarios, we're looking at the market to generally react bullish. Again, you could argue if Trump's going to be elected president, the broader market will go up. If Biden's going to be elected president, the broader market would go down. I would argue we're only looking for that downside movement in the short term. But again, it would depend on whether the Senate is also controlled by the party that wins the presidency. So likelihoods are important to determine. Again, we're not even looking at a scenario where the Republicans sweep the House, Senate, and White House because it is such low probability. And this is going to help us determine which direction we should be looking. So now we're going to break down some very quick overviews on individual sectors and what we can anticipate as far as direction. I did a video with chart gal Lori just a couple days ago where we talked about the swing report. She shared a bit of her healthcare experience in her previous business life. And in this past week's edition of the weekly swing report, she went in depth into the healthcare sector as far as individual companies and what to be watching for based on different results. So she's highlighting the importance in the Senate as far as who's going to have control of the Senate and what that is going to mean as far as changes in the healthcare sector. We're going to be looking at a Biden win to be neutral healthcare, but bearish biotech. We're going to be looking at a Trump win to be bullish healthcare and bearish biotech. So you look at that and say, well, no matter who wins, it's looking bearish biotech. I'm just going to short biotech. Unfortunately, it's not that easy because there are other bullish factors that are leading to a strong biotech sector heading into this election right now. The first is the Trump COVID diagnosis and the constant mention of individual companies and individual medicines that are continually being pumped out there that is bullish for the sector as a whole. Every mention, every progress that we're seeing from the biotech sector to combat COVID, that's all perceived bullish by the market. We also have this CRISPR stocks, which are gene editing stocks that have been on fire in 2020. A lot of strength there, and that is helping the sector as a whole as well. So ideally, we have sectors that are just clean, smooth sailing as far as direction, but this would be a scenario where I would expect biotech sector volatility because we have significant bearish headwinds, but also significant bullish short-term developments that are keeping the sector strong at the moment. The solar sector. So we just looked at a chart of TAN, the solar sector ETF, that is on absolute fire with a ton of bullish strength. So we are looking at a bullish reaction in that sector regardless of who wins. We are seeing a very bullish environment for the solar sector as a whole. 2020 has stood out to me as far as a massive capital shift in markets with a ton of money leaving oil companies and a ton of money pouring into the solar sector. And in my opinion, we're going to look back a decade from now and say, that's the year that COVID reaction is the most significant capital shift that we saw between Standard Oil and the new renewable energy space. So we're seeing the market right now price in the fact that it doesn't matter what the election results are, we're looking bullish solar. So Trump in 2020 here, just this past summer, his administration approved the largest solar project. Google the Gemini solar project if you want some more info there. And as far as Biden's specifics for the solar sector, look up Biden plan for clean energy revolution and environmental justice. And that breaks down what his plan is if he were elected president as far as the sector is concerned. So again, bullish no matter what, but doesn't mean we expect a bullish reaction on the election results because we are seeing the market already know that it's bullish no matter what, and it is pricing that in with a significant move higher just this past couple weeks. The marijuana sector, this is my bread and butter. I've been trading this sector for 10 years, ever since I first bought a stock, and that is where my attention and focus, fundamentally speaking, has been. We've seen a breakout in the marijuana sector this past week in response to the vice presidential debate with Harris mentioning marijuana decriminalization. Again, information that was already known, but information that was known by the people looking for it as opposed to being thrown out in everybody's faces. And we're seeing a significant reaction to people that maybe were not paying close attention, getting a little bit of a wake-up call as to the potential opportunity in the space if we were to get a Democrat House, Senate, and President. That's best case scenario. Because right now we've been seeing an environment where President Trump has done absolutely nothing to help the sector. Granted, he's not really hurting the sector. He's been hands off, but he has not done anything to benefit the sector in 4 years. We have the House being Democrat. Any MJ bill that's gone up passes the House, and that's to be expected because it's Democrat-led. We then expect every marijuana bill in the past couple years to then die in the Senate because McConnell is the bill killer as far as Democratic bills and marijuana sector bills are concerned. So we've had the SAFE Act, which is looking to allow better banking access to the sector, go absolutely nowhere. Harris, the potential vice president, is a sponsor of that bill. If Biden and Harris were to be elected, it would be bullish this sector. The possible benefits of a sweep for the Democrats would be removal from Schedule 1, which means a lot easier access to researching marijuana and all the different factors and implications of legalization, or the benefits of health benefits, all that good stuff. Tax codes changing to help companies which are now at a disadvantage, access to banking, which has certainly hindered the sector, and OTC uplistings. These companies right now, because they are dealing with a Schedule 1 substance, cannot uplist and trade on the NYSE and the NASDAQ and have access to bigger investors, more liquid, more dollar volume traded on a daily basis. Essentially, that's the big winner as far as I'm concerned with what to anticipate for a bullish reaction for the names in this sector. Again, if you're interested in this sector, I put out a lot of sector-specific videos for the marijuana sector and put one out a few months ago looking at the potential lead up into this election. And so far, it's playing out fairly nicely. Want to see a little bit more follow through over the next couple of weeks, but so far a good previous week, just this past week. And last, we will look at some gun stocks. So you wouldn't think Biden would be bullish the gun sector just off the top of your head as far as what you would anticipate. But think about it this way. A lot of people fear that Democrats take away gun rights, so anytime you see a Democratic president, you get a spike in gun sales, and obviously that helps the bottom line of these gun companies. So in 2008 and 2012, with Obama winning both of those elections, we saw this pattern. So we can anticipate that this pattern will likely continue. One thing to note is this sector is already coming off a bullish response to the fear and uncertainty of COVID and protests and riots and all that stuff. We've already seen a bump in sales of guns. So you could look at that and potentially say, well, everybody's already been buying guns all 2020. If Biden wins, sure, we'll probably see a little blip, but maybe it won't be as significant as 2008 and 2012 because it's already been priced in to a certain degree. So hopefully this video has gotten the gears turning as far as starting to establish your own game plans, or maybe just looking at the different sectors that I pointed to, and now you're going to go and research a few hours further into that sector, establish your game plans written down for a Trump win and markets up, a Trump win and markets down, the same for Biden, and again, just being able to look at your game plan and act when we get these results, or potentially leading up into the election, always using stop losses, always having clearly established levels for trade game plans, and that's going to prevent us from acting in the heat of the moment when emotions are high and scrambling to try and establish a game plan once we know the results. We want to know what our game plans are before we get these results. So for me personally, just an example, I am bullish the US marijuana sector heading into the election. I will definitely look to exit my positions if we were to see a Trump win and a Republican Senate, because that has been less favorable for the sector over the last 4 years. And I would look to employ more capital and be more bullish if we were to see a win in Arizona and New Jersey for states legalizing, if we were to see a Biden win or a Democrat Senate win. Those are all scenarios where I would look to potentially be bullish after the results as well, not just in the preceding weeks looking for the move to be priced in. So again, check out the weekly swing report from thechartguys.com. There's going to be a link in the description of this video for some further analysis as we go more in depth over the next coming weeks, sector by sector each week, and determine which directions to be looking on which companies with which clear levels would trigger individual swing trades. Thanks for your attention, and we will see you soon.